So we're delighted to be joined on Caps TV by the man himself, Martin Cingel. Singy, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How you doing, Esty?
I'm good. I'm good. Well, listen, thanks very much for coming on and speaking to us. This Saturday night, it's a massive night. First of all, obviously for the club, it's a massive night. We've got a big game against Dundee, but an even more special night for you yourself. Your number 29 jersey, finally getting retired, long overdue. How much a special honour is that for you?
Of course, I'm delighted. It's an honor, and I would like to thank Edinburgh Capitals organization and Scott Neal for retiring my jersey. It's a special. Especially when you look back and then look at the history of Murrayfield. Only two jerseys were retired for over 80 years, and that's Chris Callan and Tony Hand. So being in their company, it's a massive honor for me, and I can't obviously wait for next weekend and be part of it.
So just before we go, so you see the number 29, does that have a special significance to you, or was it just a number that you just started off with and just stuck with it?
Not really. I started with number 9, then 10, moved to 21, 23. As a young player, most of the numbers when you join the senior teams are taken. So you are kind of left with what is there. So I moved through different numbers. And I remember when I was maybe 23, 24, a good friend of mine, my teammate, was leaving the team where I used to play. And he says, I'm leaving 29. If you want it, take it, and you will see. And he goes, it's a special number, he says to me. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And I took it for, I think, the last 3 months of the season. And I scored a lot of goals and played well. So I was like, okay, I'll try for the next season as well. So I moved to a different team. I moved to the Extraliga team in Slovakia back in the days for a team called MHC Martin. And I ended up, I think, third or second top point scorer on the team, made the national team B for Slovakia. So I was nominated for, I think, Swiss Cup, playing for a Slovakian national B team. So I was like, well, that's a special number, and I would say every sportsman is a superstitions. They got superstitions, everywhere, even, with the jersey numbers, what you do before the game, warm up, so all these things matters. And then especially probably numbers the most. So I kept 29, and I think it worked out pretty well for me.
Yes, I think so. So you hold a lot of the Caps records. You've played 575 games over 12 seasons, 219 goals, 307 assists for 526 points and 745 penalty minutes. The only record you don't hold is most games played. I believe that's Neil Haight's got that. By the way, I've actually got these written down. I didn't have that up in my mind there. But
I was
no,
wondering if you are some mathematician.
no, I'm not that good. But no, listen, all the stats there. How special is that, knowing that, probably the majority of them will never be broken, although Chad Smith tells me that he will overtake you.
Well, I reckon it's a personal achievement. Obviously, when you look back on all those numbers, playing over 500 games, no, that's a lot of games. When you realize back in the days when we used to play BNL, we had 36 games in the league. So I still believe all those records, will be broken someday. Maybe by Chad, I don't know. But he has a long way to go, I reckon.
Yes.
But he's still young. But again, I remember myself when Gretzky's goal record 20 years ago, people say they will never be broken. And at this moment, we are looking basically, probably we are 45 goals away to get a record broken. So there will be always a special player who will come in, who needs to stay loyal, of course. But one day that record will be broken. I might not be here today, but yeah, on a personal level, it's an achievement. You can look back and then see you contributed some way to the club, to the games. it's just the stats, obviously. Team trophies are going above anything else, but on a personal level, it's achievement, when you look at those stats and then say, right, okay, and I've probably done something right, if I scored, nearly a point per game in a Caps jersey.
So, we'll go right back to the start, back to when you first started taking to the ice. What's your earliest memories of taking to the ice and learning the game of hockey?
5 a.m. morning wake ups and 6 a.m. on the ice by myself. I love those moments. I was a young kid, maybe 5-6 year old, and I remember the reason why I was kind of sent to join the ice hockey team. Me and my brother were wildcats, and mom didn't know what to do with ourselves. So she knew a friend, and then he was an ice hockey coach. And she says, "Listen, I'll give you a bottle of a spirit if you take them, to train with the team." So that's how we joined. Like it was kind of punishment for us because obviously we caused a lot of troubles. But that punishment became my job, and now we are sitting here and talking about retiring my jersey. So I had to thank my mom probably for this one. Without her, it wouldn't happen. So yeah, it was. I think overall, obviously I grew up in a completely different system back in the days in Czechoslovakia, when it was hard communism there. There was an iron curtain still up. We couldn't travel to the west part of the Europe at all. But on the other side, for young kids like myself, everything was provided for me. So I didn't have to pay a penny, or my parents didn't have to pay a penny. Sticks, equipment, skates, ice time, buses, food, everything was paid for. So I need to be grateful because I think these days most of the kids would probably never play ice hockey or play any sport in Slovakia or Czech Republic because the money matters right now. So I was kind of, I would say, privileged kid, back in the days.
So what do you remember about, obviously, you're saying you played in, jobs like Czechoslovakia at the time and Slovakia. What do you remember of your junior days? Who was it? What team was it you grew up playing with?
I played for my local team when I was a kid until I was 14. I was called Polaska Bystrica Hockey Club. So I was there until I finished my primary school, which was the age of 14. And once I joined the high school, I moved to the top club in Slovakia in the juniors. I went there to a school as well. So they used to call us a national team of Slovakia, the junior team, because even the fourth liners were in the national team. That team was so stacked up, with the quality players. And if you look at the roster of NHLers, back in the days, literally 6 or 7 guys around that year, which I played in that club, they went straight to NHL and became a huge stars. So we won a junior championship, 3 times in a row, which was a fantastic achievement and for us. And overall, I would say we were probably the best organization in the 90s in Slovakia. And if you know the names like Pavel Demitra, Miroslav Satan, Ziggy Palfi, Chara, Hossa, Gaborik, all these players came through Dukla Trenchin organization. So that's where I played my trade in the juniors for 5 years. And that was probably the best years of my junior hockey because, as I said, we had the best team. We played well, won trophies, enjoyed playing. We had the best coaching staff, and even like equipment and everything. We basically were provided with absolutely everything what could ask for, from food to training camps in the Alps. We used to go every summer for 2 weeks to the Alps or High Tatras in Slovakia and train in high altitude. So very, very professional. And that's probably what is missing these days, probably in the UK, where it's a total commitment, and then if you provide everything, you will take every excuse from a player to say, I don't have this, I don't have that. So that was taken away from us and we had to just perform. If you didn't perform, then they had a different conversation with us. So you were on the edge, but it was a good edge when the club provided everything, but you had to perform, which we did.
So you mentioned there, saying the guys that went on to the NHL, like Chara and that. Who was there a one that stuck out for you that you thought he's got to go to the top? Or
Richard Zednik. When I played against him, he obviously played for a few clubs in the NHL, mainly Washington and Montreal. But Richard was like unbelievable player. I played against him since I was 5 years old, and you could see he was on different level than us. He would literally score 6, 7 goals against us, like every game. And you could see he was strong. He was fast. He could play physically as well. He was a complete package. So that was the one kind of in the juniors who like was unreal. We were looking at him every game before every game. We look at the roster and is he playing? If he's playing, we knew, like, oh man, this is gonna be a tough night for us.
so, Singer, was it then just natural progression up to the professional rank and move on from
Yeah,
there?
I left Dukla Trenčín at the age of 18. They didn't sign me up, so I moved to a different team, which was still in Slovakian Extra League, and then starting my trade there. Of course, as an 18-year-old rookie, you have to earn your place. So I started in the fourth line, progressed to the third one, and I think I had a pretty successful first year. Played 30 games, scored 10 points in Slovak Extra Liga, which is probably not too much, obviously saying that right now. But back in the days, Slovak Extra League, we are talking about the 1995, 96, all national team players were still playing in Slovakia. Only huge NHL stars were overseas, but the rest of them were still playing in Slovakia. So it was a very, very tough league to play and very tough for a rookie to break in. It was just from 21 players from the juniors, only 2 of us progressed to the senior team.
Uh-huh.
So and both of us starting in the fourth line. So it was a tough gig, for everybody, for every young player to kind of learn the trade. But you had to work hard, pick up all those small things which all the players are doing right, and then stack up. And sometimes it was like a roller coaster. One game you were in a starting lineup, then the second game you were on the bench, and you couldn't show disappointment because you were still rookie. So you had to appreciate every chance you got. And then after that season, it was kind of a roller coaster for me. I think overall, I dropped to the league below, then went up again, then back down again. So for the next 2-3 years, it was more roller coaster for me until maybe when I was 22 or 23, when I sustained a big injury. I was out for 8 months. I've done my meniscus and ACL, and I couldn't play for a year.
So you came over to Scotland in what, 2002? That was right, yeah.
2002,
Yeah.
yes.
In 2002, that summer you've came over and you've came to the Caps. First of all, tell us, how did that move come about, and what was the reason then that you decided that you wanted to leave your homeland and obviously try somewhere else in Europe?
That's actually I was thinking about this like the other day. The move to Scotland came in 2002, and it was after my season with the Slovakian Extra League team Martin. That was the season when I won a golden helmet for I think the most productive player in the league for October. Then I was in national team B, played really well. It was probably my best season in Slovakia, and I remember after that season, I had maybe 2 or 3 really good offers from Slovakia, financially very good, and we were talking with my wife, who was working in London as a fitness instructor, what would be the best move. Of course, for us as a family, I was married at the time. Obviously, we were planning the family, what we are going to do. You need to realize back in the days, fitness industry in Slovakia was literally non-existing. We are talking about 25 years ago. So we pretty quickly realized she's if she's gonna stay in Slovakia, she's not gonna basically work what she or do what she enjoys. So I was like, listen, like I can play hockey anywhere I want. So I had an offer from East Coast Hockey League, from I think Johnston Chiefs. I think that team is not active anymore.
Yeah.
Their GM contacted me, but I was kind of more leaning towards the UK. I have to say, well, internet was still in like probably in the beginnings, so I could kind of went on online and tried to search the teams, and I found obviously Edinburgh Capitals, Paisley Pirates, Dundee Stars, and I've sent a few emails, and some guy called Scott Neal responded pretty quickly. I got a second email as well. Tony Hand coached the Dundee Stars back in the days in BNL. He responded as well, but Scoy was so quick. Then it was pretty much done within a week, all the contract. So, but Scott did that. Scott knew kind of what he's doing. If you remember, there was a player who played in a Sheffield Steelers called Warren Norris.
Yeah.
Warren Norris played in Slovakia in 2000 for a team called Slovan Bratislava in Extraliga. So Scoy picked up the phone, and Warren Norris scored in Extraliga 15 points from 52 games. When I was coming over, I scored 39. And Warren played obviously in Super League, and then he was signing us for a BNL. And Scoy pretty quickly knew, oh God, like if I can get these guys, it's pretty much guaranteed. These guys can play in the Super League, not in the BNL. So he knew what he's doing. But I have to give him a credit. He was the only one who did the research and made the phone calls. And yeah, that's how it's kind of cooked up. And I end up in Edinburgh.
So you came over that summer of 2002. It's been a running joke through the years with me and you singing about your first game. So it was a game up in Dundee, and we lost 16-3. Yourself, Jan Krajcek, Vladimir Holik, Laddie Kudrina, Peter Conda, and obviously the two Canadian guys, Adrian Saul, Stevie K, along with obviously the British guys like Lynchy, Mookie, and guys like that. Be honest, after that game, what are you thinking?
Tough one. I was ready to go home. I was like, if this is the league we are coming in, and all teams are like Dundee Stars, I was like, we are gonna get trashed. Luckily, obviously, what happened next. I think in 3 weeks' time we beat them up there 4-3, or 4 weeks' time. But after that game, I was shocked. I couldn't believe, like we had the chances and everything, but we just couldn't score anything, and they scored from every single chance. But it was tough gig, and it was an eye opener for us. We knew, like, right, we are here, and we need to work hard, because no, we are going to get nothing for free here. But eventually, we picked up. It was like a kind of different style of hockey as well. We never played two lines. That was a massive surprise for us. That first season, we literally played 60% of games on two lines. In Slovakia or Czech Republic, where the guys came from, they were rolling four lines, quick shift, 30-40 seconds. So we had to kind of conserve our energy and find a different way how to play this hockey game. And then we sat down after that game, I think, including obviously Stevie and Adrian, and then kind of work out, right, okay, this is not going to work if we are going to run and gun with these guys, because it's just 12 of us or 13 of us. We have to be smart, conserve the energy, play smart hockey, and then play for breakaways or traps, and then suck basically the other team into the corners, and then with a one quick pass, beat the 2-3 guys and create a little 2-on-1s or 3-on-2s. So, but yeah, it was an eye opener and shock, and then obviously, Steve, I know for years you are teasing me with this one, but I think it was the probably best things that happened to us. If we would win that game, we would just go, you know what, this is gonna be a walk in the park. But
yeah,
it was a wake-up call, and it was probably a good thing to happen back in the days.
And so obviously from there, Singy, you made Edinburgh home. You now stay here still to this day with your family. You brought up your family here. Just away from the rink, away from the ice hockey. What was it about Edinburgh that you love so much?
I think from obviously, if I take myself out of the ice hockey, I met just a fantastic people here. I would like to mention obviously a few names, but which I will do probably in my speech. But they created like a home for us here. There are people who helped us massively to settle down, helped us with a lot of things. Obviously, we didn't understand. It was just a friendship and an openness, from these people who just created probably the second home back in the days for us. Obviously now it's the home number one. We all settled pretty quickly. I know everybody was mentioning weather, but after 4 or 5 years, you get used to it. It's not too bad. And then Edinburgh, it must be one of the best cities in the world. It's literally got everything. It's the historic. It's you have an international airport here. Within 2 hours, you can be anywhere in Europe. You can fly to New York within 6 or 7 hours. You're on the other side of the pond. So absolutely fantastic spot. But as I said, the people here, they made us welcome, and that was the massive, basically, factor for us, that we were not treated as foreigners. They took us between them, and then kind of when the kids were born, it was a no-brainer to stay here once they started education. But overall, we are so pleased we are living here because we are still friends with these people who we met day one, and we have great stories, great memories. So absolutely fantastic. It was probably the best decision we ever made here.
So obviously on the ice, we had some great times. We had some tough seasons as well along the way. Thinking back over the years, you played obviously with the club for 12 seasons. Is there one season that sticks out the most that was the most enjoyable?
I think seasons under Doug Christiansen, they were really, really enjoyable. We had some great results. Teams were coming up here. I don't want to say scared, but nothing was granted for them. We could beat any team basically in this league, and they knew it. It was tough place to come. Obviously, Murrayfield Ice Rink Arena, it's an old ice rink. Away changing room is not the nicest place to be. Some of the guys would rather be on a bus already on on the way home than being in the changing room. But those 3 years and another year when we played under Richard Hartman, when we made the playoff and went on the unbelievable run. I think we were bottom of the league at Christmas, and we made the playoff by end of the March. It was that time when I think Curtis Lineweber, Patry came over, and Portwood. Portwood came over. Those three guys kind of, put everything together, and we had a great year. So those 4 years, they were fantastic. And obviously the first one, I think we were maybe 2 points away or 3 points away finishing top 3. So
yeah,
achievement, and I think the Scotty still loves, that year, on the budget he was and what we achieved. I was just, he reminds me that every second day, to be honest.
So, Singy, you played with a lot of great players here at the Capitals over the years. I'm going to put you in a position, I know it's hard, but if you had to pick one, who would you say was the best player you played with as a Capitals player?
From my own perspective, I would say Mark Hurtubise. Well, he was the player when I played with. It was my best season ever. I scored, I think, 30 goals that season. And I think I clicked with Mark as a person and as a player as well. I just regret I didn't follow him to Sweden, when he moved over. we understood each other, and he was the guy who was really, really good. He knew what he wants. Obviously, he played in the top leagues in Sweden, I think Switzerland and Finland as well. So yeah, he was the player, I really, really enjoyed to play with.
And Hurts, that was his actual first year as a pro player as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was the first pro player. He didn't demand a lot of money. I remember when Doug signed him, he's supposed to be a center for a second line. He wasn't the first liner, but after a couple of games, it pretty quickly showed up. He's a special player, and then he was a great skater. Had a great vision, and then you could see he ended up as a top point scorer in the elite league in the Edinburgh Capitals, and that shows you something.
Yeah, and I think that year, I'm not sure, we definitely qualified for the playoffs, but
We did.
were we maybe seventh, or I think seventh?
So I think we were seventh, and we played against Sheffield.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
In the playoff, and I remember.
Even that, Singy, like as a seventh place team, for Hearts to lead the league in scoring was, unreal for a seventh place team.
Unbelievable achievement from himself. It's that's why Mark Hurtubise for me, stands up as a player I play with. Because he, as I say, for me personally, he was a great player to play with. A great person. He was a quiet guy, but he could deliver on the ice. He was deadly. You gave him a space, and he would beat you. And also to achieve, as you said, being a top point scorer in a team which finished the seventh, it must be a massive achievement.
So I'm going to put you on the spot now, Singy, and I'm going to ask you your favorite, your top line. So it can be Brits, imports, whatever you want. So we'll have a goalie, 2 defensemen, 3 forwards, and a coach. So we'll start off with a goalie.
With a goalie, I would go with the goalie Cody Rutkowski. He gave us a chance every game, week in, week out. So I have to go with him. In the practices, he was sometimes unreal. We couldn't score against him. So definitely Cody would be a number 1 goalie for me if I have to pick from a Caps ex-players.
Okay. And 2 defensemen. So first of all, first defenseman.
First defenseman, I go with the big Jan Krajicek. Big Jan, it was a pleasure to play with him. He was skillful. He could skate. He could play 45 minutes a game. That was another thing back in the BNL. But he was just smart and made good decisions. Sometimes he could overplay the things, but that's because he played 45 minutes a game. He was trying his best. But he was, for a power play, he got a really good shot as well. So that's the number 1 D-man. And the second D-man, I will go with my countryman, Miro Dropa. He had a rocket.
I remember a few of their goals.
That right-handed shot on the power play, you could just pass it to him, and you kind of knew it's going to be a goal. You could put a hand up, even before the puck, went to the goal. But again, he was a good friend. But based on playing ability, those 2 guys were fantastic for us in those years. And I don't think we had such offensive guys on the blue line later on in my basically time with the Caps.
I think that as well, Singy, like when you think of like Jan especially, like as a fan watching it, we had never seen a player like Jan before. This 6'5", 6'D" man could skate end to end, unbelievable shot. As you say, played like 45, 50 minutes a game. Like that was a thing that we hadn't seen in Edinburgh. And I think that's what was just so special about guys like Jan and obviously Miro having that unbelievable shot.
It's you need to understand, for example, Jan played in top league in Czech Republic, which was probably back in the days the second best league after the KHL. So he was coming, from that league, and he played for a national team of Czech Republic as well at some point of his career. So these were top-end players coming over here. Obviously, they were not the youngest one. I think Jan came over when he was 32, 33, but still a productive player. So, coming here and obviously to seeing these players play, I think it was privilege for every fan. And even for opposition fans, I think Jan was voted in All-Stars team that year. And then we finished, I think, 4th or 5th. So it was, I think it was a game changer in BNL when we, Eastern Europeans, from guys from the Czech Republic and Slovakia, came over to Edinburgh. Because I remember after that year, I had probably 20 phone calls from every single club from BNL chasing me to give them some names and then getting a feedback on the players. Because overall, teams like Guildford and Coventry were starting signing players from that part of Europe because they just quickly realized it's not just a basically North American way. Players from Europe can play as well. And then we proved, we can play hockey in the UK. It was obviously more physical, but we got used to it. And then obviously we were not probably as expensive as the North American guys.
I know Miro obviously being, I think, did he play with you at MHC Martin?
No, we never played. We never played together. We play against each other. But I knew Miro for the Rocket from the blue line.
What about Jan? Had you crossed paths with him before?
I played against him 1 year when he moved to play from Czech Republic to Slovakia. After that, we never played. Jan used to play for Slavia Prague, which was a top team in the Republic. And then that was a pretty high level. Okay,
so 3 forwards. You can, if you want, you can put another one in Steedy Hurts because you've already mentioned him if you want, but it's up to you. But 3 forwards, on you go.
Right, okay. The first one will be Colin Hemingway. Hammer was a pleasure to play with. You could see why he was drafted, why he got a chance to play in NHL. Pure skills, killer instinct. He could fight as well. I remember when he was holding his own against Brad Wolf here at Murrayfield.
I remember that game, yeah.
Yeah. Great fun in the changing room. Absolutely fantastic teammate. So I think that year we played together, me, Mike Stutzel, and Colin on the same line. And that was pretty enjoyable.
Because Stats played in the NHL as well, didn't he? A couple of games.
Yeah, Stats played in the NHL. I was the only one who didn't play in the NHL. I was if these 2 guys can play there, what about me? Jokes aside. Definitely Colin would be in my lineup. He was the special player, very talented, and as I said, he was a great teammate and a good fun in the changing room.
So, who's your second forward?
My second forward, we can mention obviously Mark Hurtubise, but I would say Tony Hand was pretty special. We played together here in Edinburgh, in Manchester, and probably that was said 100 million times. He was the best British player ever to play. He was another player who I definitely enjoyed to play with. His skills were second to none, and as a winger, you appreciate a good centerman, the one with a vision who can find the pass, because he will put basically bread on your table, as we say. With those passes, you score the goals, and then you earn contracts for the next year. So he was definitely another one.
No, well, and your final forward?
It will be myself. No,
you're not allowed in it. You're not allowed in it.
No, I'm not allowed that. I would go back to our first year. Stevie K, fantastic player. Not a big guy, but again, very skillful, strong, and God, he could fight for his size. For a BNL, he was one of the best pound-to-pound fighters, I would say.
I remember, funny you saying that with Stevie, I remember a game over in Fife. I think it was a playoff game that we won. I think we beat them 4-1 maybe that season. And I mind they fought Frank Evans. And Frank Evans was a kind of well-known tough guy at that time, at that level. And I mind Stevie like holding his own, if not beating him. You know what I mean? But he was one of the guys that fought and just went for it, wasn't he? He just 100 mile an hour, just throwing punches, and he was strong, a very strong guy.
Yeah, as I say, pound for a pound, he was probably the best fighter in, or one of the best in the BNL. He wasn't a heavyweight.
No, no,
He had a few smart moves, and then when I saw his third or fourth fight, I kind of knew what he's gonna do. The move when he moved his head under the basically shoulder and start basically punching by his left hand. And I asked him, about it, and he says, he got told this by one of the old guys in Canada, and actually it worked very well. It was a great move, and then I've seen another move by, if you remember, Jim Vickers, Jimbo.
yeah.
When he had the fight with was it Patterson from Cardiff? I think he was a player coach back in the day.
Ed Patterson.
Patterson, yeah. When he pulled his short, he lost the balance, and then he punched him with his left hand and opened, I think, his chin. I think 2 or 3 stitches. So these guys were not the biggest guys. They were not proper tough heavyweights, but they had those one move, which could destroy you. And Stevie had this. But again, I have to say Stevie was a really good player. He wasn't just a fighter. You could see his numbers overall when he played here, and he always scored the goals and delivered at that level. So again, I picked the guys who were great teammates, contributed well, and then were fun in the changing room. Didn't never cause any troubles. So overall, great guys and great persons.
Okay, and just finally, your favorite coach?
I have to pick two. I have to pick two coaches for this one, and it's a combo: Doug Christiansen and Joe Hay. Those two together was fantastic boys. I think they were, as I said, they were the best years. Those 3 years under Doug and Joe, and they were smart. Jocko was old school, which I loved. It's just the way I would probably coach or try to coach when I was coaching, but it didn't work with the kids. It works only obviously with the senior guys. But yeah, they could understand. Guys, it wasn't just about the hockey; it was about the life. They could understand if somebody had the problems. They were approachable. The doors were always open, and I think hockey-wise, there was the probably best 3 years we've seen in Edinburgh, in Elite League. As I said, we could beat anybody here, and it went down to the obviously coaches as well. They were a massive part of the recruitment, especially Doug. He brought some really good guys here, great characters. I remember, his recruitment tactic. When somebody asked, "How is the team?" he says, "Oh, we had the city center is great. What about ice rink? Oh, the golf courses are absolutely brilliant." And he goes, "Well, hold on. What about the local guys? Oh, you're not gonna believe that guy called Kyle Horn. Oh my God, the funniest guy in the world." And by the end of the basically video call, the guy said, "Okay, fair enough, I'll sign."
Brilliant. As a fan, obviously watching through the years, I think the Doug years for me as well were just really good. We competed every year. I think that last season, especially 2009, 2010, when obviously Hutchie was there and Owen Fussy, Simon Lambert, Cody was in goals, Mark Smith, Dan Welch, Mark Lefebvre. You know what I mean? That was a good team that year. And we probably, maybe only 1-2 players missing for, making like that final 4 weekend. Because I'm sure I'm right, we were going into that weekend, the last weekend of the season, and I think we're maybe sitting 4th or something. But I think results kind of went. I'm not sure if we were 4th or something. I think maybe ended up 5th. But I think if we had won and Scott results went our way, we could have finished 3rd or something. It was something along the lines. But I remember that season. I loved that season. I thought that was one of our best. And but the Doug years were probably the best in the period anyway.
100%. We were close, but again, I remember a couple of playoffs against Belfast when we were holding our own, and then we lost by a goal in Belfast and by 2 here. It shows you these teams got experience. They're the experienced players who played playoffs, a lot of times, and then this experience counts. Same against Nottingham. We held them here. I think we drew with them 4-4. Went down to Nottingham.
Yeah, that was in last season, wasn't it?
They
2-9,
lost
2-10.
5-0. So it comes down to the experience. I believe if we would be able to keep Doug on the board and some of the players, so we wouldn't have to rebuild the team every year from a scratch. Eventually, we would get there. But back in the days, it was pretty difficult to compete with the Sheffield and Nottingham when financially we just couldn't compete against them.
So you've given me that line. To be fair, that's a very good line. But you played against a lot of top players as well. Even if there's any, honorary mentions here, guys that you played against, but is there a top player that you play against? I think I know your answer here before you say it, but is there a top player that you played against and you thought, wow?
You know the answer. You
I
asked
do,
me the question previously. It's here in the UK. It must be Theo Fleury. When he came to Belfast, he was 36 or 37.
Yeah.
Everybody knew what happened to him, why he ended up here. I don't want to talk about that. But what I never realized was how good he was when he played against us, and he was 37 and literally spent a year and a half out of the hockey. I couldn't imagine when he was in his prime what he could do, what damage he would do to the teams. Of course, if you look at his numbers in the NHL, he won a Stanley Cup with the Calgary when he was only 18-year-old and played a massive part in that. I can't imagine how good he was, at that level when he was in his prime, because he was absolutely tearing apart this league at 37. His passes, his vision, second to none, and he wasn't afraid to drop the gloves as well. I remember our first game against Belfast.
Before you go into this thing, I seen something today on Facebook. It's exactly 19 years today for that game, for the first game in Belfast, and that's what it was. It was showing you what you're just going to say about Big Freddie and
Big Freddie. Obviously, we know that Freddie's not here anymore. But I remember when Freddie jumped on a Theo Fleury, and it was a massive bench clearance on both sides, and we ended up 10 guys fighting basically on our ice. Theo scored, I think, 3+4 that night against us.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
It was just crazy. He had the fight as well. And then fans went absolutely crazy because he delivered absolutely everything for the fans. Goals, assists, fights. He was physical. But yeah, I was kind of glad I was there. Even though we lost, heavily there. But it was an eye-opener again. That NHL is on a different level. And then these guys are just unbelievable players.
And any other guys before we move on for that you played against that, stick out and you think were good players back then?
I would say Belfast used to have a pretty good guys. Like every single import was a special there. Cardiff as well, but none of them were as special as Theo Fleury. Greg Kuznick, a D-man from a 5, he was a really good player. D-man, he could read the game, and you could see the reason why. I think he played one game in a show as well. He was drafted by Colorado, I believe. I might be wrong. But he was a special player, and he could fight as well if he wanted. If Paul Ferron was scared of him, that tells you something.
Yeah.
I heard they were teammates previously, so that's why they never dropped the gloves. But I've been told the one guy Ferron wouldn't fight was Kuznick.
So, Zingy, you captained the club for 7 years. You took over the role for Jim Vickers. But previous to Jim Vickers, it was obviously our current head coach, Lynchy. Back in the early days, did you learn things from Lynchy, the way he led the team that you then took into your captaincy role?
Yes, I did. I picked up a few things from Stephen. Stephen was a great captain for Capitals, and he lead the way. The boys listened to him. He controlled the changing room. I used to be captain in Slovakia, but it's completely different when you're coming as a foreigner or a player from Europe. English is not your first language, and so the guys will follow you. So it took a couple of years, of course, but in my head, I knew what it takes to be captain. You need to be a leader. You don't need to be the best player, but you need to be a leader, and they need to listen to you, and they need to follow you. You're kind of a connection between the management, coach, and the players. So I hope the boys enjoy when I was a captain of the team. You need to create the fun as well, but there is a line when you need to win the games, and that's your job. You need to deliver. So everybody needs to understand where the fun is over and when the serious hard work starts. So I hope everybody enjoyed, as I say, playing under my captaincy. And overall, I really enjoyed it. I wasn't as I say, shouter. I was shouting at the guys, but I believe I more led by example, trying to obviously show the hard work, do everything for the team, help the teammates, and then be a good captain for everyone.
So you scored 219 goals for the Caps. I know this is a hard question, but is there one or two that still stick in your mind to this day?
It's a hard question because most of the guys would say, yeah, that goal in the playoff overtime when we won this and that. It obviously doesn't work with the Caps. We never won any trophies, which is still my big regret for the fans. I would love to win something so they could enjoy celebration. But it never happened, and that's the life. There's nothing we can do about this right now. But one of them is always, somewhere in your mind. Obviously, 219 goals. I can't remember all of them, but I still remember my 100th goal against Belfast here at Murrayfield. And funny enough, I know it was I think Kevin Phillips was covering me, and I was waiting for immigration in Morocco, in Marrakesh. And guess who is in the line? Kevin Phillips.
Yeah.
So I bumped into him. He was carrying a Guildford Flames bag. And I say to my kids, I scored 100 goals, when this guy was covering me. He left me a half meter, and I scored with the one hand. So I eventually went to him because the queue was massive for 2 hours. I eventually went to him and say hello. And then he's like,
you said thank you for giving me my 100.
No, not really. I didn't mention that. He wouldn't be happy about that. But that's the one goal I remember when I scored a 100th goal for a Cap. It was a league goal, or I think it's a 100th league goal in a league. It was with one hand, and it was a game-winning goal as well.
So I know you enjoyed every goal that you scored, but was there a team that you enjoyed scoring against the most?
Oh, Belfast Giants. I don't know. Like, I had the luck to score against them. I remember when they supposed to win a league here, and we beat them 4-2, and I scored, I think, 2 or 3 goals against them. And I remember I was good friend with Ed Courtney. We always had a chat before and after the game. That was the first time, and I was leaving a changing room and went around him and asked him, "How you doing?" He didn't even look at me and walked away. So, we met after when he went over here with his, I think, uni team. So we had a good chat about that. He say he still couldn't believe they lost the title here at Murrayfield because we were bottom of a league.
So Murrayfield Ice Arena, you obviously came here in 2002. You walk into that building, what are you thinking?
Oh God. When I walk into the old changing room, when there were benches instead of stalls, I just couldn't believe. I thought, what is this? But it's just one of those things. you know, as a hockey player, obviously you want to have a best changing room, but when you look at the building and everything, we knew it's almost impossible to have a changing room when you have a 25 stalls, you have a sauna, jacuzzi, massage room, coach's room, video room, the stuff that I used to get in Slovakia or Czech Republic when we played. So I think boys kind of accept it, that changing room, it's gonna be small, and then I spent there 12 years of my life. And I'll tell you what, when we had a party in the changing room, the room was bouncing, it was so small, you could speak to anybody. And then it wasn't like you were hiding somewhere in a corner. Everybody was in. So, when I look at the bigger picture, it was great changing room.
So what made it so special, that rink, for you? The next question, we're going to talk about your connection with the fans, but what is the ice? It was a massive ice pad. Did that suit you? The big ice, and obviously the history of the building as well. Was it just what made it so special?
I think Olympic size ice rink suited my game. I believe I use my speed a lot. So to beat the guys one on one, go wide, there was a lot of space for me as a winger. Instead of when we played in the small ice rinks, when we take, I don't know, Manchester, I was all about the dump and chase, and then a lot of physical hockey. And Cardiff, for example, teams were built to play the hockey there. But when they came here, there was a lot of space, and you could create. If you were a technical player, which I believe I was a little bit technical than physical, then it was, for me, that was great. And the quality of ice, I have to say, like our guys at the rink, Zambolin drivers, they always prepare the ice perfectly, and it was absolutely brilliant. When it came to places like Cardiff or Manchester, I know they had a temporary ice rinks, back in the days, but ice used to be horrendous there. So it was so hard to play there. There was a boater always standing in the middle of the ice. It was melting. You couldn't play anything after 10 minutes. So yeah, I really love to play at the Murrayfield, and history of the ice rink as well. Still those wooden seats. Yeah, some people obviously are not happy about that, but like it's part of the ice rink. So yeah, really love to play at Murrayfield.
So the fans, they really took to you, not just for your, the way you played on the ice, but the way you were off the ice. I think you always had time to chat to the fans, and I think the fans appreciated that. They had a song for you, Single Bells, which I'm sure we'll hear on Saturday night. What, how good was that a feeling? Whether it was a goal and you heard that song getting sung, or at the end of the game when you would stand in the middle of the ice and orchestrate the fans. How special was that?
I don't even know how they started. I know that song started back in the BNL days, but I never contacted the fans. But I think it came maybe at seventh or eighth my season. At some point, I stopped there and then started contacting basically the fans. I always appreciated, we always did it only when we won the games. Sometimes some fans wanted to sing even after we lost the game, so I felt sorry a little bit for them. But that wasn't time to celebrate anything. But I believe every sportsman should appreciate the fans, especially for the small clubs like Edinburgh Capitals used to be, or it is. You should act professionally. You should speak with the fans. So obviously there is a line when you need your privacy as well, but you should act as a professional sportsman. So you should have a time for a media, you should have a time for the fans, and that's, I think, makes you a good player, good professional, a sportsman, and it's part of your job as well. So I believe we had a good relationship with the fans, and I really enjoyed it, songs and everything. A good banter as well. Sometimes you lose the games and you need to take it on the chin, but everybody basically can have an opinion and you need to accept it. As you said, we had some tough years, and it was hard to read sometimes, what people were saying about us or writing about us, even journalists. But again, that's part of your job, and you need to deal with it, But overall, I have to say I had just the positive things to say about the fans in Edinburgh. And then there another part of or reason I stayed here in Edinburgh. I met some long-term friends now, who came just to watch the hockey, and we became friends and even family friends. So overall, fantastic, like for me. I wouldn't say anything else about that.
So just overall, Singy, how would you sum up your Caps career? I know you mentioned there earlier not winning a major trophy, but how would you sum it all up?
I believe I gave Capitals my best hockey years. I came here when I was 25-year-old, and then my last game for the Caps was maybe I was 40, 41. Can't remember now. But as you mentioned, my only regret is we never won any big trophy. That was one of my biggest regrets, because the fans would definitely deserve it. I consider myself, I wasn't probably the most gifted player who ever played here, or the best player who ever played here, but I always worked hard. Try to lead the team when I was a captain, and obviously chip in with some goals and assists to help the team to win the games. And overall, I would say that pretty much summarized me. I never been a guy who kind of was trying to be flashy or anything. It was all about the hard work and deliver as much as I can for the team and for the fans.
So in between some of your Caps years, you had spells at Solway, Manchester, and Dundee. Did you enjoy, just briefly, did you enjoy your time at the three clubs?
Yeah, the move to Manchester, I think after I was 9 seasons with the Caps, and it was after, I think, horrendous season we had with every single import left except Jeff Hutchins. And I was in a stage of my career where I needed a change. I need to recharge my batteries. It took a toll on us. I think that season we won, I think, 6 or 7 games, and we knew before even the game started, we knew we are going to lose. So it was very depressing. And then that move came out of that. Went to Manchester. It was a good place to play. Unfortunately, we finished the second in the league, second in the cup, and lost in the final of a playoff. So I was so close, with them to win a trophy. But again, it didn't work. After a year, I came back for another 2 years to Edinburgh. Solskjaer, I have to say thank you to Maren Grab. I got injured, in a Solway when I joined them, and they kept me on the board as an assistant coach. I was helping with the coaching, and I learned a lot from Maren Grab, who eventually took me to coach the GB under-18 national team as well. So massive thank you to him, and then again another thank you to Jeff Hutchins. That was my last season in the league when I played for the Dundee Stars. It didn't work the way I thought. We had a great team, but for one reason or another, players starting to leaving. We had to rebuild the team at Christmas, and that's never a good sign. And we never made the playoff. So, but overall, it was a great experience. I met a lot of obviously people around those hockey clubs. Still, they are friends with me. We are missing each other. So it's good to see when you obviously visit the Dundee to speak with the owners or equipment managers, guys who were around the team for years, and they came over to you and say hello and then ask you how you're doing. So it's a nice part of the hockey.
And that was a young James Isaacs in Dundee Stars that season you were there, I believe.
Yeah,
Did he come
yeah.
Did he come mid-season there, maybe?
Yeah, Izzy was playing for a Dundee Stars. So I think he was a marquee signing of Jeff Hutchins. When Jeff went, Izzy went. So I'm just waiting when Jeff will turn up here at Murrayfield at some point.
So you finished up with a season playing with the Murrayfield Racers before you hung them up. Do you miss playing these days?
Not really. I think I overplayed. I played all the way until I was 43, and my body just couldn't take it anymore. And I have to admit, motivation wasn't there. After so many years playing, it was over 25 years being in pro or semi-pro hockey. It came to time when I knew I'm gonna hang up basically the skates. We won a league and a cup with the Murrayfield. We won 2 trophies. So I was pleased for the fans. I was pleased for the teammates and myself as well. And it was time to return something to the family as well, because as you know, hockey is it's a tough gig. Weekends you are gone away, so you're with the families basically functioning without you all those weekends for years and years. And I have 2 boys, and they have their activities now, so I'm trying to basically spend as much time as I can with them. So not missing a hockey or traveling, but I'm missing a banter from a changing room. That's the one thing I'm missing the most. Some of the stories that will stay with me for the rest of my life, and that's the part of the hockey life I'm missing.
So after your playing days, Singy, you done some coaching. You were coaching the Caps SNL. You were involved in the GB junior setup and also Scotland. Is that something you would look to get into again somewhere down the line?
You never say never. At this moment, I'm not part of any coaching team. As I said previously, it's because my kids obviously are doing some activities, so I'm involved in that and then trying to help out the family as well. So I don't have a time, having a full-time job, and then plus, we want to spend the time with the family. It's you are spinning a lot of plates, especially when you're traveling. So, but you never know what can happen. I might, return to a coaching, again. We had some chat 2 years ago with the Scott and then Lynchy about my involvement maybe with the Caps again. But at this moment, that's on a hold because of my other commitments. So I might return. We will see.
We'll see. So I mentioned at the start of the interview, it's long overdue. Your jersey getting retired. It's going to be a great night on Saturday. We've got a massive game, as I mentioned at the start as well, against the Rockets. There's got to be Caps fans old, Caps fans new. But it's a great chance as well, isn't it? I said this to Lynchy in one of the interviews I've done with him, that, there might be a lot of fans coming along just to see you, your special night. But it's a chance for the fans, the team, to showcase. And, it shows just what's happening in Edinburgh, how good the hockey is these days.
Exactly. I think you're right on this one. There are Caps fans who will probably come, who watched the hockey 25 years ago, BNL times. And that's the opportunity for the club to showcase themselves and then maybe bring a new fans, back to the building. Team is doing well. I was watching the first game against the Solway Sharks, a friendly game preseason. So they've done well. In the league as well. I'm following the results, so I think there is a big opportunity to catch some fans, who used to enjoy the hockey at Murrayfield previously.
Well, Singy, I think we've nearly covered everything. I just think we just need to finish up. And do you have a message for the Caps fans, ahead of Saturday?
Obviously, I would like to welcome everybody on a Saturday. It's going to be a special night to watch the team. And maybe to watch my jersey to retire after them. But as I said, jokes aside, no, it's going to be a special night, and I would like to invite everybody. We'll have a little bit of fun, and hopefully Caps will win, which I believe they will do. And then we'll have a few drinks upstairs and probably see some people I didn't see for maybe 5-6 years, maybe more.
I think it's good as well, obviously playing the Rockets. They are a new team, but, Jeff Hutchins is coaching the Rockets. And, there's a couple of guys I think you played or coached with, like John Dolan and Sean Beattie, guys like that. So, there's got to be a lot of familiar faces there, isn't there?
Exactly. Obviously, I have a history with Jeff, played with Jeff. We coached together. Then he coached me. So, and as you mentioned, the other names, John Dolan, Sean Beattie, they all played with me or against me. Scotland is the small place for ice hockey. So if you play with 2 or 3 teams, you pretty much know everybody. But I'm glad actually we are playing Dundee Rockets, and you can see people like Jeff Hutchins, who will be here, who spent with me, probably over a decade. So I'm glad it's going to be a good game. I know Jeff will prepare his team for that game. It's always good to win at Murrayfield, but it's going to be tough, because obviously Caps are doing well. So hopefully this time it's not going to be good for a Jeff, but for a Caps.
Yeah. Well, Singy, obviously on behalf of the club, but on behalf of the fans, personally being a fan over the year watching you, I'd just like to thank you for your services to the Capitals. A top player, but I think above all a top human being, and a guy that anytime I've had dealings with you, you've been top class, and you've always been very helpful. I hope to see you around the rink in years to come as well in the future. As to whether you'll be a coach one day or whatever it is. But I just want to say thanks very much, and thanks very much for taking your time out tonight to have this interview. I've really enjoyed catching up.
Hey Steve, thank you as well, and it was a pleasure to do that with you.
Perfect. Okay, I'll see you on Saturday.
See you on Saturday. Come on, Caps.